Thank you everyone for being here today. We're super excited to have you back for another Ask Me Anything session. We know the summer can be pretty relaxed for some people and still pretty busy for other people. So this was our way of kind of integrating the summer schedule into our Cloud Job series. Today, we're going to focus on cybersecurity and still give you all room to ask your questions and meet these wonderful experts and industry leaders that we have with us today. With that, I'll pass it over to you, Chaitra.
Before we get started, I actually would like to know where you're joining us from and what do you want to learn today? I want to know why you are here, because the next 60 minutes, I want to have you take something valuable back into your life so you are actually ready to take action. So as you are typing, tell us where you're joining us from. I have people from Georgia. Georgia as the country or Georgia as the state? Debbie, welcome. So excited to have you here. Bijou, so nice to see you. Great to see people when they can put their camera on and be ready. That's awesome. Savannah from Georgia, fantastic. I have Cecilia and Brandon also joining us from. They're going to share some really great insights. Turkey, that is fabulous. So here is pretty cool.
Nice.
Here's the question I have for all of you. When it comes to cybersecurity jobs, what is the most significant challenge you face in securing them? I asked this, what's the most significant challenge you face in securing them? Tell us that, because it's very important, because this is a place where there is a lot of talent gap. People don't understand how to get into these jobs. So we want to know is, what is the challenge that you face securing these jobs? That's why you're here. Go ahead, take a moment. I know you're all thinking. Okay, as you keep coming, I will just kind of talk through what to expect. So, Megan, thank you. No response from putting in application. Very good question, because I'm not having enough experience. Completely on spot, and we are working through both of them. Megan, as you're saying, is no response from putting in application. Tell us, what is that? Where are you putting the application? And which companies are you not hearing from? It's good to know who are not responding, right? So it's very good for us as a community, so we know we can reach out to those companies if they're not responding. So with that one, what I would like to say is there are few things that we have actually made available. One is we are really thankful for Microsoft being the sponsor of these Ask Me Anything series. Loud shout out to Debbie Utek. She's really one of the fabulous partners we have at Microsoft to ensure that we provide these scholarships available for you. So if you go to the next slides, and these are all the specialization and professional certification that has been offered. So over the last 15 months, we have distributed over 3,000 scholarships across 65 countries, and more scholarships are made accessible. So now we have around 9 specialization and professional certification that's available for all of you. So the 2 things that we have added, which are very unique, which is available as of this, this month, is the Microsoft Power BI data analyst. That is a key skill set that's going to open up a lot with AI and data. And second is the Microsoft Cybersecurity Fundamentals. This is a course you have to have as part of your professional certification for you to be very successful. Next slide. This is the one which is for the first time, Microsoft has worked with Coursera to bring these security fundamentals, and it's the right certification. It's SC 900. And what we want to do is you have access to them, because now you are here today, you get to apply for it. You get access to these scholarships. So it would be really good for you to go and take those certifications and get ready. So that is just the technical certification. The second piece of the skilling that we all learned was career development skilling, how to show up as leaders, because the leaders expect you, they have a problem, they'll set the outcome, and they'll say, go figure it out. Now, how do you go figure it out? Well, that's where we have established an Insider Circle program. This is where we are helping women cultivate their leadership and also be celebrated. As part of it, your brand development happens. You're also working on your mastery of what skills you can bring to market. Build your network, because the network is where how you open up the jobs. I can give you an example. Over last weekend, we had a big event, and we had an apprentice work with us, was nominated through the community. And not only she did a fabulous job, she's also hired within the Women in Cloud ecosystem. So those are the kind of access points that gets created. So I want you all to be actively engaged in a network, be part of the roundtables, and also look for warm introduction. That's how you get the job. So Megan, when you're saying is there's no response, is because you don't have a strong community that's nominating you and pulling you through the process. So is that good? You have everything that you need. Say yes in the chat that you understood that there's scholarships available. You can apply. You have an Insider Circle program that helps you build your career development skills. Now coming to hearing from our panel, very excited today. There you go. Thanks, Steph. We have Cecilia, Perez-benitoa, and Brandon Neeb. Both are from Microsoft. And Cecilia is a senior content developer, and also Brandon is principal content publishing manager. But let me tell you, they said something that Google doesn't know about them. Cecilia loves to be near the ocean, everything near the ocean, everything about the water. And then Brandon basically did a pretty interesting opportunity at the North Korea, which you will never find about them. So let's welcome both of them to really talk through today, and they can introduce and they'll talk about how to think about the security certification. So Cecilia.
Thank you, Chai. While I speak, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. Hopefully you'll see that. So again, thank you for having me. This is something I hope you guys find very helpful and beneficial. My name again is Cecilia Perez-benitoa. I am a content developer. By the way, are you guys able to see my screen? I'm sorry, just want to make sure you're seeing it.
And Cecilia, before I do, just tell about you,
Okay.
what you do at Microsoft.
Yeah.
And I would like Brendan also to introduce him.
Okay.
Because I know he will be answering all the questions.
Yeah, so I am a content developer. I'm responsible actually for the SE900 training content, which is what we'll talk about today that you referenced, Jai. So very excited. This is a course that's been around now for about 2.5, going on 3 years, and is something that's very dear and near to my heart because started it since its inception. So a little bit about me. I'm based out of Miami, Florida, which is why I love the ocean. I kind of have, I think, salt water running through my vein. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Brendan, I don't know if you want to comment before we kind of get in.
Yep. Brandon Neeb, I'm the content publishing manager for the security content within Worldwide Learning at Microsoft. So our group does the certification exams that Cecilia is going to talk about, instructor-led training, online courses, pretty much everything in that space is what we do. I've been at Microsoft 20 some years, so I'm happy to help with whatever questions come up today. Thanks.
And thank you, Brendan, for being on the chat and answering the questions. And if there's any question you can answer, feel free to unmute yourself and come on the screen. So with that, Cecilia, I'll hand over the baton to you. Take it away, and I'll come back when you're done.
All right, great. Just a quick check. You guys are able to see my screen, correct? Yes. I'm not seeing the chat, so if someone could.
Yes, we can
okay.
see.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let me see if I can advance the slide here. Okay, so so as we mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the Microsoft Security, Compliance, and Identity Fundamentals, or just for short, the Security Fundamentals, or SE900 training content. But before I jump into what's covered in that content, I really want to take a few minutes to provide some context as to why this content matters, kind of in the context that Chai spoke about, right? And although my examples are obviously going to be around Microsoft, I believe this applies generally, right? And so when we think about the Microsoft Cloud as an example, with its various cloud offerings, whether that's Azure or Microsoft 365 or Dynamics Power Platform, these offerings are designed to address a company's digital transformation needs. And a foundation upon which these are built are security, right, and compliance and identity and management capabilities. And the tech roles that manage these aspects, right, security and identity or compliance for a company, they really enable that cloud journey at whichever level you're engaging, whether it's kind of an entry level or even more advanced. And so building this into the foundation is really critical. You can't just bolt this on. And again, I believe this is true regardless of the example. I'm using Microsoft, and I'm going to talk about Microsoft for obvious reasons, but I really believe this is true generally, right? So I think it's really important to understand that this is something that you have to build in as a foundation, right? And so when we talk about security and compliance and how to manage these components, these things have been around for a long time, right? This is nothing new, but clearly we're living in a very different world than we were just a few years ago, right? And I'm not just talking about, things, that have changed as a result of the pandemic, right? That certainly caused a lot of change and shift in the way we work and security, but think about things even geopolitically, right? Cyberspace is now a theater of war, as scary as it is to say that, right? And the scale is even increasing. My point with using that as an example is that traditional conventional security tools really haven't traditionally kept up, right? This is a very different world that we live in right now. And also the cost and impact of security breaches are increasing. It was a few years ago, right, that you might have heard things with the Colonial Pipeline shutdown and the impact that it had on the United States as an example. And that's just one small example, right? This is true across the board. And so as governments try to keep up with regulatory rules and constantly changing and the cost of compliance, it's a very different world. And when you think about compliance and the cost of regulations, just to give you an example and an interesting statistic, right? There are over 1,000 regulatory bodies around the world that issue about over 200 updates per day. So just imagine trying to manage and keep track of all of that, right? And so the net of this is that cybersecurity, right, isn't an option, right? This is a fundamental requirement for all organizations. If you consider that email is responsible for about 91% of all cyber attacks, and the cost to organizations around the world is over 10.5 trillion with a T, right? $1 trillion by 2025, which is only about 2 years away, right? So this is huge. Now, with all these challenges, there are opportunities, right? Digital growth is increasing. 149 million jobs from 2020 to 2025. And something that I think is really important, every IT position now is really a cybersecurity position. That's something to really think about, because if you have a digital footprint, security matters, no matter how big or how small that organization is. So this is a little bit of that context that I think is really important to understand. And kind of related to this digital job growth is really the opportunity for cybersecurity jobs, right? I had done a quick search on this topic last time I did a very similar presentation, and these are very real headlines, right? 3.5 million jobs opening in this space. Some of this is from 2021, but some of this is from last year, and these headlines are still relevant. If you look online, this is still very relevant, right? These are the headlines now. So training and certifications that prove an individual's skill in this area are becoming so much more important and critical. So with that, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking more about the actual SE 900 or the fundamentals training. And who this is for, right? This is a very broad audience. It's for those that might be new to IT and see a career opportunities in this space and basically want to align that learning to Microsoft as an industry leader, as an example. It could be someone who maybe has some experience with IT but needs to familiarize themselves with the Microsoft stack. It could be for students, right? Business stakeholders. It's a very broad audience. So, and it's really a place to start to get that high level understanding of Microsoft's security, compliance, and identity solutions that are, again, the foundation of the clouds that we build, right? That slide that I showed at the beginning. And you can see here just a few of the products that are covered. Azure Active Directory, which now is called Microsoft Entra ID, Sentinel. I'm not going to go into details on the actual products themselves, but these are some of the things that are covered. And it's important to note that there are no prerequisites, certifications required to take this cert. This cert actually spans Microsoft 365 and Azure, and although it is helpful to have some basic knowledge or understanding of some of these, there's no prerequisite for any other certification in our portfolio to take this. So what's actually covered? And the way that this content is designed, there's basically 4 functional groups, right? And you can see the topics here. We start with the concepts. And when you think about security concepts such as defense in depth, which is this idea of creating layers, right, of security, you learn about things like a shared responsibility model to understand who has responsibility for what when you think about the different types of scenarios, whether that's, you might have heard infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, all these different types of models and scenarios. How do you manage that from a security aspect, and who has responsibility? And another one that's so important is zero trust, right? This is a big one. And you may have heard the expression of the past, trust but verify. Well, this is different. This is don't trust until you have verified. And to give a very real life example of how important this is, back in May of 2021, the White House issued an executive order on improving the nation's cybersecurity infrastructure. And this is a publicly available document you could find online. And basically, it required the head of every agency to develop a plan to implement zero trust architecture within 90 days of when that order was issued. I call that out because this isn't just some fancy marketing buzzword, right? This is a very real business and government necessity. And again, not just government, but businesses are aligning to this. Another concept area is around identity. And this is so important because if you think about traditionally, when you go, the security concept of, hey, I'm in an office, I'm connected to a corporate network in a building in an office. Well, that's a very antiquated model. I am working from my home and I work only from home at this point, right? And so this notion of this corporate network and security within the confines of an office building really just isn't enough. It doesn't apply as much. You can pretty much work from anywhere and on any different type of device, whether that's a cell phone, a tablet, your corporate provided PC. And my point with this is that, the way in which we connect, the way in which we access corporate resources is different, right? You can access from anywhere, and that, whether it's again a cell phone, you're sitting at the beach, connecting to your corporate resources, an application, all those things that are connecting and trying to get access to those resources, those are identities that need to be secured. And so that's kind of where this notion of identity as the new security perimeter comes into place. And that's a very, real concept when you think about identity and some of the things that we talk about, as well as authentication and authorization. How do I connect? What can I connect to? What do I have permission to connect to? These are all very basic and important concepts that are the foundation of things that are covered in this. And then, of course, compliance. Understanding key concepts about data residency, data sovereignty, privacy, all these things are super important when you consider that the cloud spans the world, right? And just to give you an example of Microsoft's cloud infrastructure, we have over 200 data centers across the globe, right? 60 data center regions, 35 countries with data. And all these countries, of course, are going to have their own regulatory requirements, their own privacy requirements. And so understanding some of the concepts around compliance is really important. And so these are some of the things that are covered as part of the concepts section of the training. Then you also then get into the area of identity. And this is, again, a super important when you think about identity as the new security perimeter, identity and access management. Again, enterprise security is not defined by the physical boundaries of that office building, right? But by the identity of those things that require access to your enterprise, to your network, to your resources. And identity is not just about, authentication, which is this idea of, verifying, am I really who I claim to be, but also the level of access, right? What am I authorized to access? What do I have permission to access? Administrators need to be able to manage that identity lifecycle across the entire enterprise landscape, right? And this is something that businesses of any size need to manage. This isn't something that is reserved for very large companies. Any corporation, no matter how big or how small, needs to manage this, right? And just to kind of give you an interesting statistic, when you think about Microsoft's identity and access management solution, Azure Active Directory, again, it's now referred to as Microsoft Entra ID, manages more than 1.2 billion identities and 8 billion authentications every day. And that statistic is probably now outdated, right? It's probably much more than that now. And so my point with that is that identity and access are really a cornerstone of an organization's security practice. It's interesting. I was listening to a session at an RSA conference in April. And RSA is a big security conference that's held every year in San Francisco. And one of the statistics that was presented is that there are over 1,287 password attacks per second, not per minute, per second. And this is doubled in the last year. And it takes less, and once a breach is made, it takes a hacker less than 2 minutes to basically move laterally within that network. So when you look at all these things, right, and the reality, understanding and being able to have skill sets that help people manage this in the organization are really so important, right? There's a really strong motivation to have skills in these areas. So just a little bit of context there. And so we cover that in one of the functional groups of this training content. The third is around the Microsoft security solutions. And again, this covers also Azure and Microsoft 365. And so when you think about this, and we talked in the first section about the concepts, right? Things like layered security approach and zero trust. When you look at the security solutions that are covered here, you can really begin to understand and see how the Microsoft and Azure solutions allow you and enable you to provide that level of whether it's zero trust security strategy, layered security. And so we cover and we link the information around these solutions, how to enable those security strategies of zero trust and layered security, right? Also, an important part of understanding and securing an organization is really understanding their security posture, right? You want to, and so you have the opportunity here to learn about Microsoft solutions that are able to look at your environment, right, across multi-vendor clouds, across multi-vendor solutions, and provide security recommendations, be able to collect data across, again, multi-vendor, multi-cloud, collect data to be able to identify and detect threats, to enable organizations to investigate those threats and to respond to them with tools that include artificial intelligence and make security operations seem so much more productive. So this is an area that, all of this the technology is growing so fast, but these are good places to really get an understanding of the solutions and how these things enable organizations to be more secure. And so these are just a few of those topics. And then the last area is around the compliance solutions, right? Organizations, again, small or large, are dealing with sensitive data, whether that's customer PII, data, so information that can personally identify you, privacy laws, government, industry, and even corporate regulations. And they need to be able to manage all of this, right? There's a lot to manage there. And this really, the compliance with this is really critical to an organization's ability to sustain itself, right? Because data is the lifeline of an organization. And so also organizations can be fined for not complying with privacy or regulatory requirements. So failure to adhere to these requirements on the area of compliance can also impact the company's brand and reputation. So it's not just the financial impact, it's that sustainability of the company, its reputation, its brand. And I mention this again because, again, these are things that there's a lot to manage there. And the great thing is that understanding and having the skill set to understand the tools that enable and the knowledge to say, hey, I understand what these data privacy laws, these governance, data sovereignty, and how our solutions enable compliance to that is a skill set that I think customers and organizations have to have, right? It's not an option. They need to be able to manage this, whether it's compliance or identity or security. These are things that are critical skill sets for organizations of any size to be able to have people that have that skill set, because cybersecurity is not an option, right? And so I've gone through this fairly quickly. These are 4 of the functional areas covered in the fundamentals. Again, it's a great place to start because it gives you a flavor and understanding of the solutions at a high level. I like to use the expression that it's kind of a mile wide and an inch deep, right? And that's by design. We want to give you a flavor for all these different things. And then, of course, there are different certifications that go into much more depth for all of these areas. So that's a little bit on the fundamentals. I know I've gone through that maybe a little bit fast, but I want to make sure to leave the time for the Q&A, which I think is really the crux of this presentation. So with that, I will try to bring up the chat here because I'm not seeing the chat right now.
Hi, Cecilia. Great conversation. Here are some things I actually loved, which was blown away, is 90% of the breaches and things happen through emails, and 149 million new jobs. That's amazing. And in spite of when people say, we are going through a recession and layoffs, the new jobs getting created. So your security is kind of at the center of it. So with that one, there was one question that was, I think Brandon answered, but one question is how cybersecurity is being generated by recent growth of AI and the generative AI. Cecilia, anything that you want to share?
Yeah, and I haven't seen the response, so if this is repetitive, I apologize. But AI is really taking the productivity of teams and organizations and individuals to a whole new level. I mentioned the RSA conference that I had the opportunity to listen into numerous presentations. And what's so important, especially in cybersecurity, right, with all these breaches and the rate at which hackers can hack into things, is you need to be able to work at machine speed, right? And so how do you do that? And AI really enables so much greater productivity at a rate that we as humans can't do. Now, the human factor is never going to go away. You have to have that, and you have to have those skill sets. But that's where AI is really bringing in that just notching up in more than a notch, right? It's like significant greater productivity in cybersecurity, and quite frankly across many fields, right? And so, but you always have to have that human element because you need to make sure, hey, is this real? Is this and so these things are going to come together and work together. But AI is bringing just exciting new opportunities and productivity in every way.
And Cecilia, you said something which I think is your next TED Talk, is working at machine speed. You need AI co-pilot to work at a machine speed, and completely agree. I remember the time when the dishwasher was a concept, and when the dishwasher came in, every woman in the house, they said, oh my God, my job is going to change. But it transformed how you live.
Yes.
Right? So it's the same kind of concept, but you do need this co-pilots to really work at the machine speed. So you are actually driving what the innovation and transformation looks like. So you don't have to do the manual job, that the machine can take care of it. So
exactly. It transforms the way that we engage, right? It doesn't take away that human element at all, right? It transforms the way we're going to work with these technologies, but it's going to take a lot of those things that can be automated so that the skills that we develop in our technology areas are things that we can apply to those things that, okay, we really need to look at this, right? We can't defer that to a machine, or we need to work with a machine to be able to make sure, is this correct? Because, AI is great, but AI is not perfect, right? It's gonna, and maybe we'll have a different conversation in 5 years or 10 years, but ultimately, the human element has to be a component of that. But we need to be more intelligent in terms of how we engage with that, so that we can let the machines do the automated things that they can do, and let us focus on the things that we can really add value. And that's always going to be there, I think, with any technology.
Absolutely, Cecilia. I think most of the people who are in the tech, they will tell you the APIs were doing things behind the scene, and it did exactly what AI would do: call, make things, and pull all the data on the screen. Now you actually can give a prompt, and then it does all the things you need. So it's a great thing. So I don't see any major questions. Do you all have any question for Cecilia and Brandon? Please put it in the chat. So Cecilia, as you're going through this one, I have few questions that the team has prepared. So if you can help us, are
Sure.
there any different job roles available in cybersecurity field? And what do they entail? Do you have any insight around the cybersecurity field and the jobs related to that?
Yeah. So, cybersecurity and technology in general, and cybersecurity is no exception to this, is growing so fast, right? AI was probably something we weren't even talking about 5 years ago. I mean, the research has been around for a long time, but I think we can all pretty much agree that it's been a big deal. It's in the headlines everywhere in the last year. And my point with saying that is that the technology changes at such a rapid pace, right? And so the roles and the jobs are going to evolve with that. And so I think the guidance that I would offer there is really, as you learn more and get awareness, whether because you're reading some article or something you read on the newspaper, look into that, right? Go online. And the way that you're going to find, what are the kinds of jobs out there and skills is I would encourage people, go into company sites, industry sites, look for jobs, search on security or cybersecurity and look at the different roles, because it's going to vary by company, by industry. You're going to have to worry about, hey, identity or compliance. Big companies have probably many more roles because they have opportunity to have people more specialized in certain things. But my point is, look into those companies or industries that you might have an interest in and see what jobs they are posting, right? And the skill sets they require for those, because that's going to help. And I want to take a minute also to, I don't know if you could see here, I brought up our Microsoft Learn site, because I think this is an area that also can provide some information. It's aka.ms/learn. And if you go here on career paths, right, you can actually see for security operations, security analysts, solution architect, and you can go in here and actually get information. And this is just one example. Again, go online is my recommendation. Go to industry sites, go to job company sites, see what they're searching for. But this will give you an idea of, the learning, the kinds of skills, what is, a security operation analyst, right? What are the kinds of things? It gives you opportunities to have learning paths and create learning journeys that might help you if that's an area of interest. And something you mentioned at the beginning is about the tech community, right? Is because it's hard to sometimes network. And so there's great opportunities to get connected through things like tech community. And again, these are the Microsoft examples. Most sites will have this. I encourage folks to go online and look for that type of information, because there is no shortage of it. Does that help? I hope.
I think so, you did. And also, if another site or another search, go to LinkedIn and say security roles, and then you will see tons of people with the titles. So oh, that's the kind of titles that they have.
Right.
So that will help you. Cecilia, one more question. What's the progression after learning the fundamentals? And is Microsoft the best option? I will answer, but first I want you to answer.
Sure. There are a lot of great certifications. I have taken Microsoft certifications. I've taken third-party certifications, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But when you think about, the next steps from a fundamentals, and again, I'll use the Microsoft example as a first-party certification. I talked about 4 different areas: the concepts, and then identity, security, and compliance. For security, identity, and compliance, you can then drill deeper from the fundamentals level into that next level of Microsoft certification that is focused as an identity administrator cert, or a security analyst certification, or even around information protection, which kind of aligns to that compliance topic that I mentioned. And so if you go on Learn, you will see those certifications and information related to those. So you can drill down from that fundamentals into those. Now, those are first-party Microsoft certifications, but similarly, there are third-party certs. I myself have taken several, right? Because you always want to have a broader perspective. We focus on our Microsoft solutions. There are CompTIA, there are ISC squared certifications that are less vendor focused and more vendor agnostic, that are also great resources. So there's a lot of material out there, and I encourage folks, find an area of interest, whether that's identity or security or whatever it may be, right, in technology. And if that's an area of interest, then look into that, because there is no shortage of information and certs and training and certificates that you can pursue to develop your skills.
Well said, Cecilia. And Nick, to add to what Cecilia said is, Yes, you have to find out your niche, whichever the niche that helps you gravitate, because that is a place where you can actually solve the problem for the customer, or you understand the problem better than others, and then take the certification. Once you have the fundamentals, you go deeper and deeper, and you gain that level 200, level 300, level 400 kind of depth. That's what gets you to become the master, and also gets you to take the leadership roles within the company. So it's kind of like the fundamentals are just to kind of get the experience.
That flavor.
The flavor you need. So I have Rosanna, she's like asking, it's so important to hear that human skills will still be necessary and essential in the days of AI. It will always be. Humans will not be replaced. If you don't know how to use AI, you will be replaced for sure in the workforce. I would like to know, what are the top soft skills that we should reinforce or develop? Cecilia, do you have anything to add there?
And that's a great question, because, as people in technology, we focus on these skills, and I will admit to being a bit of an introvert in that regard, right? It's like, I want to focus on the thing or the machine, but you need to be able to sometimes get out of a little bit of that comfort zone, and, being able to communicate, right? A really smart person once told me, you can't, make an extrovert out of an introvert, but you can help them be more effective. And the way that you do that, I think, is with areas of interest. Like I can talk about security stuff because it's an interest of mine, or, outside of work, I love boating and kayaking and stuff. And so those are things that I gravitate to. And so it's not that I become an extrovert, but I can speak to them, and there's energy and there's body language that shows that I love that stuff, right? And so I think being able to identify those things that you gravitate to, and then engage, right? Have those conversations. I think no one needs you to be an extrovert, but those soft skills to be able to express yourself and to communicate in a way that people that you're communicating with can say, hey, this person really understands, because it's an area of interest to you. I think that's really important, is that focus on communication and presentation. For me, it's outside of my comfort zone for sure. But I think that's a soft skill that adds a lot of value, because when you're looking for a job, when you're looking, interviewing and hiring, it comes out in your body language, it comes out in your facial expressions. And so I think that's where it also aligns, I think, to being able to find that area that is of true interest to you, right? If you're looking at something, the headline says this is like the next big thing, so that's what I'm going to focus on, and you don't care less about it, you know what? It's going to show. You're not going to have a passion. You're not going to have an energy. So align your interest in your development and skills and certifications, or any of your learning, to things that truly interest you, because it's going to show. It's going to show when you have those conversations, when you have those interviews, even if you're not an extrovert.
No, Cecilia, you are absolutely great at communicating and presenting. That's definitely your gift. Rosanna, in addition to having those skills, because that builds you a lot of confidence, is having financial intelligence, is articulating a problem in terms of financial numbers, so that you can articulate to the managers and leaders of why you should be doing what you do. Second, having a skill set of presenting a problem and presenting a solution, so that they are convinced that they can go. So there's a lot of negotiation skills that is required. So those are kind of the skills you need. And the third one I always say is licensing skills is a very important component in the tech, which is very underestimated. And people who know the licensing of the software and how you present that in an effective way will help you gain a lot of skills, like help you gain a lot of momentum in your career. So those are kind of some of the things, Rosanna. It's just you have to become very resourceful, get things done, and show up with a positive energy that you can get things done in a company.
Yeah, and you mentioned something, Chad, just real quickly, I wanted to tap into, because I think it's so important, is, when as part of that communication, and, if you're in a work environment and you either have to position something that's either requires funding or like that financial intelligence, being able to articulate, the value proposition, right? Why is this important? Why do you care? How is this going to help you? And and be able to, and write it down, right? Is like, here's the argument that you want to make to kind of make that position known. And if you could do that, even if it's on paper, and then you can articulate that, I think that goes a long way, because ultimately, there has to be a value in things that people are doing and investing in, whether that's technology or so forth, and being able to present that what is this going to do? How is this going to make the business better or more effective? And so it's that problem solving in a way, right? What's the value that's going to deliver? And if you could kind of position those arguments from that perspective, you have a great skill.
Awesome. And so, Cecilia, there's a question, and Brendan did a fantastic job, is could you tell which would be the next certification after AZ 900 and SC 900 for someone they want to develop in cybersecurity? So Brendan definitely responded that after the SC 900, the curriculums are organized by roles. So, for example, SC 300 for identity and access, right. SC 200 focused on people who want to mitigate attacks and security. SC 400 is focused on compliance and data security. So those are the ones. So do you have anything else to add, Cecilia, here?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly right. And when you think about those first party certifications from Microsoft, is what is that area that really piques your interest? Something's like, you know what, that's interesting to me. Let me look some more, right? Focus on kind of going down that path. And if you're not sure, then that's where, sites like the one I showed you, LinkedIn, others can help you, right? Because you can then begin to do a little bit of research and say, you know what, that sounds interesting to me. I want to learn more about that. And then the other thing is, I think it's always great to pair these like Microsoft certifications, first party certifications that really focus on the vendor or the Microsoft stack in our case, with also something that is vendor agnostic, right? Because there is great strength and power in being able to say, hey, you know what, I understand some of this from a technology perspective, vendor agnostic as well. And so third-party certs that help you develop skills. When you pair that with, a Microsoft certification that looks at the Microsoft stack, that's super powerful, right? Because you're not just, it's a big world out there. Microsoft is a great big company, and I'm thrilled to be part of it. But I think being able to speak to whether it's from a competitive standpoint or not is important, right? And so that's where third-party certs, I think, also provide great value in understanding beyond that, more vendor agnostic approach.
Absolutely. And just to add to Cecilia too, is when you go into the security path, having $100,000 job in the tech becomes very easy, because there are very few people who understand security at the level you can. So it's really a great skills and mastery to acquire. Nick, you have been asking phenomenal questions, and I really thank you for it. And I'm actually going to send you a $5 Starbucks gift card for being absolutely asking brilliant questions. So here's a question from him: is what initiatives should you look for when trying to find a company that is focusing on being cyber secure? And how do you tell when it's a priority? Nick, if there's no company not thinking about cybersecurity, you should not be working for them.
That's right. That is
That's
right.
the answer. And Cecilia, anything you want to add here?
No, you nailed it, right? And that's why in one of the slides is like, it's not an option. If it doesn't matter if it's a small company or a large company, if you're connected in any way, cybersecurity needs to be a priority for that company, right? I mean, that's just not optional. In fact, I think that was the header of a slide, is cybersecurity is not optional. And my guidance would be, based on your interest, look for companies in that area because it could be banking, it could be in any type of area. Don't think it has to be a technology company, right, per se, because every field, every company, and every industry has a need for cybersecurity. So align it to your interests as well, right? Look for things that you gravitate to, because I think that's always the best option.
Yeah, awesome. Nick, please just send your email address, or put your email address so we can send you your gift card. And Rosanna, you're also doing a fabulous work. I will also give you a $5 Starbucks gift card for asking these questions, because not many people ask these level 2, level 300 like questions. So it's really awesome that you're asking for it. So Cecilia, here's a question: what's the best entrance level agnostic security certification?
There are quite a few, and I'm not claiming to know and be familiar with all of them. I've taken I've taken the CompTIA security certifications. I think they do a great job. I like that one. But again, go online, you'll find some. There's some industry ones, but there are a lot of whether it's CompTIA, ISC². There's some great bodies out there that offer certifications. I'm just sharing the one that I've taken, and I learned a lot from that, and it was helpful for me. So yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. Any other questions you all have? Otherwise, I'll ask you one more, Cecilia, and then we'll see if there's no more question. We can wrap up a little early. So are there any specific industries that have a high demand for cybersecurity experts?
I don't know data-wise, right? Like we said, right? Every industry has to look at this. But if you think about banking, you think about healthcare, some of these really core industries that drive world economies, right? They're always going to have, very large organizations, I believe, that really have to focus on that, because think about just breaches that have happened, right? If healthcare goes down, God help us, right? Same with the banking industry. So it's not that every company needs to worry about this. Large companies in these industries that really drive global economies are going to have very large organizations, is my guess, on cybersecurity.
Yeah, and Cecilia, looking from the broader ecosystem, we are looking as defense sector is really
Huge.
implementing a lot of security protocols because of the
Yes.
cyber attacks and
Yes,
ransomware.
that White House directive that came out. That is like the White House of this country, of this country's executive branch sent out a directive. Thou shalt do implement zero trust security.
Mhm.
This is very real. These aren't buzzwords. These aren't marketing hypes. This is a basic necessity, I think, at this point.
Exactly. And the second one is aerospace is using a lot on making sure there are security protocols. The consumers are demanding a lot. Healthcare, already you talked about financial services. Insurance is another one, which is implementing a lot of cybersecurity protocols in there. So I would say is every industry has to do it, but there are some industry which needs to really protect because it's your health, it's your money, it's your identity that they have to protect. And the other ones are still have to do it, but not at the intensity as some of the top levels. So think about in the world of where the priority is for you, and then you'll start to see that's where there's a lot of cybersecurity.
Sure, and even energy companies, right? Utilities, right? Can you imagine?
Exactly.
Oh, the grid just went down because of some hacker.
Exactly. So there's one more question I have is what are the benefits of taking Microsoft's certification as opposed to other organization in regards to obtaining an entry-level cybersecurity analyst position? So Megan, I will have Cecilia say it, but I'll also give kind of a contextual. 96% of the companies across the world have something with Microsoft product in it. So it kind of makes sense for you to know the product because when you enter into a customer ecosystem, they will have something with Microsoft. So having a certification allows the door to open very quickly for you rather than justifying. As soon as you say you're Microsoft certified, automatically the trust, the brand will carry you forward and the door automatically opens. So that's kind of my rationale of why I wanted to work for Microsoft for a long time, because of the vision they had and the products they had. And the way they engage the audience is definitely one of the masterful ecosystems. So that's why I would say is having a Microsoft certification is a good thing for you. And Cecilia, anything to you want to add from a Microsoft perspective?
No, I mean, I think you've said it, right? I'm very proud to be part of Microsoft. I've been with the company for almost 10 years now. And, ultimately, they are a leader in this space. And I think when you think about the level of integration, I could have put a bunch of slides that speak to not so much from a marketing perspective, but if you think about the end-to-end holistic security that is cross cloud, cross even vendors, right? That's something that I think Microsoft solutions offer and deliver, is that holistic end-to-end cross-platform, cross-vendor, cross-cloud solutions, as opposed to having bolt-on solutions, which are then hard to manage and integrate. So that's one thing. And again, something I said is, being able to have that knowledge of Azure Active Directory or Microsoft Entra ID is a leader in the identity space, right? There's no one that can touch that. Just the sheer amount of authentications and that happen on a daily basis, right? So one is the industry leader, but also just being able to pair up that with something like a CompTIA or something vendor agnostic, I think is very powerful. So yeah, that's kind of my take on both Microsoft and then some vendor agnostic type cert.
Awesome. Perfect, Cecilia. That was great. So we are 8 minutes into it. I'll have Marissa come over and moderate the final portion of it. There's one question that Debbie asked is, how can I overcome imposter syndrome or self-doubt when applying for tech jobs? Cecilia, anything you have to answer?
Yeah, I think that was a great question. If you think about your path, and what I mean by that is when you're applying for a job, right, you have an interest. And when you have an interest, you're motivated to learn. So I would say, go through what you learn, what steps you've taken on that journey, what you've achieved, and no achievement is too small, right? And jot it down on a piece of paper or say it out loud, right? Because I think what that's going to do is that's going to assert for yourself what you have achieved. And there's nothing imposterish about that, right? If you can assert, hey, I've done this, and I learned from, I went from this step to this step to that step, and you've developed that journey. And by the way, it continues, right? The learning doesn't end. But if you can assert for yourself, hey, I've achieved this, and no achievement is too small, there is nothing imposterish about that.
Completely. I don't even believe there's something called as imposter. It's a made-up story. After watching Barbie this weekend, I'm like, there's nothing called as imposter. It's just all in your head. We need to shatter our own belief system and you can move forward. That's just me. That's how I lead my life. So it's good. So before I hand over the baton to Marissa, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fabulous Q&A session and you got answers, that's 10. 1 is like, I don't know why I'm here. Can you put in your feedback to us? Thank you, Alex. Hearts to you. This is what we want to do, is that you are getting the answers that you're looking for. And that's the intention. And give a big loud shout out to Marissa and Cecilia and Brandon and Debbie for making this possible. So Marissa, I'm going to hand over the baton to you and you can take it from here.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was fantastic information. I helped put this on, and Cecilia, I'm one of those people, we talked previously that I don't have the basic knowledge of cybersecurity, and this was still helpful for me as someone that didn't have the knowledge that our chat is coming in with. I think we just want to know, is there any final thoughts you have about the specific like cybersecurity fundamentals course, or anything else that has to do with how the field is growing and expanding? I did see a comment that talked about the integration of the role into other roles and what does that mean for finding a career in this field. So if you want to kind of speak to that and give us your final thoughts on why cybersecurity is so important and why this is necessary.
Well, it's so important and it's necessary. It's fundamental. If you are connected in any way, as a company, as a small company, large company, it's just not an option, right? Protect yourself, even as individuals, right? Mm-hmm. We hear about this all the time, right? Someone hacked into my account, identity theft. So it's just not an option. You have to become aware. But more importantly is align your learning journey, your path to an area of interest in the technologies, right? Don't just do something because it's the latest headline, because it's not going to be rewarding to you. And I can guarantee you there are areas, it's such a huge area and the technology is growing so fast. So you'll find something. Most likely, if you're on this bridge, it's because you have some level of interest, you'll find something. So align it to something that is truly of interest to you. And I think you'll be successful because it'll be rewarding to you. And if it's not rewarding to you, that it's going to be a chore.
With a couple minutes left, can we ask you what made you interested in this field?
Oh gosh, it's funny because I've always loved technology, and so from I have an engineering degree and background because I always like to tinker with things. I ended up in security, quite frankly, because of changes and I loved it, and I really just pursued it because it was an interest. And if it wouldn't have been an interest, I wouldn't be here today, I can assure you. And sometimes things happen, right? But I've always had a great interest on technology. And I was one of those kids that was always tinkering with something, usually breaking it, never being able to fix it. But I love playing with things and more of that hands-on stuff. And that's how I got into it and security through my career at Microsoft. Had some opportunities, and I'm loving it.
That is amazing to hear. And I think it's always good to hear about what made you choose the path, especially with how quickly technology seems to be expanding the past like decade or 2 decades. I think with that, unless you have any additional thoughts, we want to give a big thank you to you, Cecilia, and you, Brandon, and Debbie, for being in the chat and really helping out. It's been amazing, and this has been great information. Chat, can we get one more thank you and just let Cecilia and Brandon and Debbie know how amazing it's been to have them? And yeah, any final thoughts? And if not, we'll wrap it up today.
Thank you for the opportunity to share and present this stuff. I'm excited about it. I'm passionate about some of this stuff, and the learning never stops, right? Just continue learning, whatever the topic, whatever the area, just learn, right? It's never, it's just that's what's going to grow you ultimately.
Thank you so much for that. Keep learning, everyone. That's the biggest takeaway from this. Have a great day, great night, depending on where you are in the world. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.